continue to do for this new year. Lord, that the budget is down and that they're getting new equipment. And Lord, and they're keeping everything there in order with what you're doing for the projection of the budget and all the raises and the things that you do through the years for people. Lord, we just thank you that we could commit all of our works to you, and you will guide us and lead us with the teams. I thank you for the mayor, the lawyer. I thank you for the board members and all the workers, for the chief of police and the fire department and all the stuff that they do. So, Lord, we just committed to you, and you said that redevelopment for our communities and development and grant programs for the communities and rate studies. We thank you for all that we get the best deals because we asked and we have people put in their bids and we get the good bids and we get the work done. And thank you for Cody River Development as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Kinsley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we're going to open up commentary from the general public. I've had a couple people that signed up, so we'll start there, and then anyone that hasn't signed up that wants to speak, we'll give you an opportunity by show of hands. The first person that signed up is Mr. Danny Fields. Welcome.
Yes, and my address is going to be 8114 Little Kid Avenue, and that's here in Port Richey. And again, I just want to thank you for your service. And of course, it was a great Christmas we had in the park, and the police and the fire department. We thank you that we got that permit to be there. My colleague here is going to give you the facts and numbers on that, what the faith-based church and the community come together to make this a great place to live and to play and to work in. And the feedback is always great. I know I sound like a broken record when I come up here with that, but what I'm wanting to do is give you a report on what we're doing and the things. And we couldn't do this if we didn't part together to make this a great place to live and to work in and to fellowship and to have fun and enjoy life. You know, this is a sunshine state. So we got so many things that we're growing in Port Richey with. That's a great community to live in. I really appreciate the leadership here and the vision you have for this year. I've seen what you've done over the last few years that I've been a part of being with you through Leonard and lately being here, being on the team, and I'm grateful. And I know it takes all of us to work together, and so I thank you for that service, and I look forward to doing more with the police and the fire department and events in the park and in the areas and stuff. So just thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. The next person that signed up is Ms. Pam Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In conjunction with what Danny was just saying, we want to thank Port Richey for the continued partnership with Somebody Cares for the annual Christmas in the Park. We had over 100 volunteer hours, hot dogs, snacks, drinks, and abundance of gifts for the children. Supplies, food, and time was donated at a value of over $7,000. We thank you for the continued relationship with Port Richey, and a special thank you to the Port Richey Police and Fire Departments. The children really enjoy being able to see the fire department's trucks up close and to talk to the policemen. We pray that it was a blessing to all the city that took part with us and to all that attended. Now, on a personal note, I want to make a special thank you to the fire department and the police department, because Sunday night I woke up and looked out and my neighbor's dock was on fire. Made sure everything was safe and secure and put out. So we've got a good group.
Thank you. signed up, but by show of hands, if anyone else would like to speak at this time. Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to commentary from our city manager. I'd like to invite Mr. John Duke to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to meet with a group of Cody River Landing business owners this past week. Had representatives from almost all of the bar and restaurant businesses in the area. Had a couple of business owners from Grand Boulevard join us. Had an opportunity to update them on the project in the Cody River Landing area, and then had just general discussion, things that are of interest to them, things that the city is doing, and ways we might work together. So that group is committed to continue to meet with or without me, but kind of help bring them together so they have some opportunity to interact with the city and get information directly. Just so you all know, we've secured repair services for the clock that's outside of City Hall. The clock and the light aren't functioning, and so appreciate Sal and Sean taking care of that. We've got a repair service coming. It's kind of a specialized thing. Not a lot of clock towers and repair personnel. City Hall interior painting is nearly complete. This room's been painted for quite some time. We've got the same color going up on the walls and in the interior office areas. So I want to thank Sal for that hard work. We had the opportunity to meet with Stantec to get an update on the rate study. They plan to be here on the 24th at our next council meeting to present the stormwater rate recommendations. That portion of their work is completed. They're currently working with staff on water and sewer rates, and we're getting information to them. Had the opportunity to visit and meet with AIRS. They plan to be here on the 24th as well to give us an update on the Cody River Landing project. I had the opportunity to attend the New Year's Eve celebration of the Cody River Landing and got to hang out with Marvelous Marvin of Hits 106.3. So I had 2 minutes with him to talk about all the good stuff going on in Port Richey, and that was a lot of fun. By 8:30, I was back at my house and didn't see the bulb drop. So limestone fishing pier design is on schedule. We've received the geotech, the topography, and bathymetrics. I still need to look up what bathymetrics is, but those reports are in. The design company is still on schedule according to the schedule that you received several weeks ago. We met with the contractor for the street maintenance projects, still kind of lining up the information in the street survey to the various maintenance options that are necessary there. So that work continues. They assure us that once we've got all that work done, we will have no problem spending the ARPA funds that have been allocated for that project in a very timely fashion. I think that was his way of saying we've got more work than we have money. But that project is moving forward. The CRS continues. We're nearing the end of that. The CRS folks gave us a timeline of somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. And I really appreciate Veronica and Amanda and Katie all working on that. They won't give us any preliminary unofficial indication of what they're going to set our CRS rating at, but looking forward to getting the final word from them. That impacts our flood insurance and the price that property owners pay. So kind of holding our breath there. I met with Health to talk about the vulnerability assessment. We did have a kickoff meeting a 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, right during the Christmas time, where we got to meet each other, get some idea of their timeline and their needs, match them up with city staff. So they're in the middle of the critical asset inventory and the draft geodatabase. That work will be completed this week, so they're on schedule with that. I did have an opportunity to meet with Pasco County administration personnel. We had some need for some GIS support, we don't have a GIS function in Port Richey, and so reached out to Pasco County. They're going to lend us some GIS expertise on occasion when we need it. So I appreciate that support from the administration with Pasco County. Just a reminder, the MPO meets on January 12th. I had an opportunity to talk to their transportation planner, talk about possible projects and ideas. It kind of came to the general consensus that the projects that we have or potential projects may not be big enough for MPO. We sure don't want to wait 5 years to, mill and overlay a street. So he had some ideas about other county and state funding opportunities, and so I'll be pursuing those. But the MPO does meet this week, and I'm sure they'd love to have you in attendance if you can make it. The dog park here at City Hall is under renovation. Public Works staff have been out there working hard. We may have to shut it down for a short period of time while we move some equipment around, but appreciate those guys working on that. We're doing painting, we're bringing in new mulch and shell, doing some repair work in there. It's a lot of use. I can see the gate from my office, and there's people over there all the time. So it's time for a little renovation there. Staff and I are working on a draft budget development schedule. Rachel and I kind of put our heads together over the last couple of days. We'll have a draft to you in 2 weeks. Kind of wanted to get your sense of how you want that budget development process to go. I know we kind of made some changes last year, and we can do the same thing we did last year, but Rachel will also have the timeline for when we get fiscal information, when we receive our penny for Pasco estimate, when we receive our property tax estimate, and then when we get the real numbers. And that kind of gives us, we can start doing budget meetings now, but we're just kind of hoping and guessing until we get actual numbers. So I will start with department heads working through their individual budgets, but we'll get a draft schedule to you in a couple of weeks and kind of lay out how you want to interact with city staff and in the budget planning process. Very happy to have Mike with us. He's our building official. Excuse me. He will start full-time with us on the 6th of February, so he's still a contractor right now, but he and the city came to agreement that it's best for both of us if he comes on full-time, so he will soon be a city employee. We've been able to recruit, select, and hire a water plant operator. We've been using a contractor for that for the last couple of months, and glad to have him starting on the 23rd of January. I'll have him come in and introduce himself when we get him on the payroll. And last item, Pasco County West Side Joint City County Workshop meets on the 23rd of March. I think all of you received an invitation to that. I went back and forth with county staff to try to get them to move that meeting later in the day. They've always scheduled it at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and I know that's really difficult for most of you to attend. And so they were willing to put it on 3 p.m. on the date, on the 23rd. I think they had to push it into March to get their folks available at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But hopefully that makes it a little more feasible for some of you to be able to make it. County staff just didn't have any idea that it's really hard for us to get there for you. I can get there at 10 o'clock, but for you to be able to make it, and so I appreciate her going to bat for us. But 3 o'clock on the 23rd of March, and we've already sent the agenda items that you all had identified, and be an opportunity to interact with the county and hopefully get some of our projects moved to the top of their list. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
At this time, unless there's any specific questions, I just wanted to move on to commentary from our board, and then we can address any issues with him that we want to on his commentary. But I did want to, before we go any further, bring up the issue that it looks like we may have a couple council here that's for item 8 on council business. And what I would like to do is have a vote to move item 8 to item to the top of the list, which would be item 3 on ours, so we can get council out of here and handle that up front. So can I have a motion to change the agenda order from new city selection, attorney selection from item 8 up to item 3, and then everything else shift down?
Sure, make a motion to move agenda number 8, new city council, to number 3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I had a couple issues that I wanted to bring up, but I'm not sure. They may be more suited for the CRA. I know that in the past, there's been some talk between at least myself and the mayor of Newport Richey. They have public transport that goes from the garage to some of their area where they have bars and restaurants for public transportation. We don't really have any of that here in the city. And there may be a couple things. Number one, there may be some grant money out there, or there may be a way to piggyback or utilize what they already have working in terms of public transport. And the reason I raise that is I know that as we redevelop the waterfront overlay district, I think most places there serve alcohol, and I think that from a public safety stance, it's nice to have at least maybe some public transportation options that we can explore. I know that we talked about at some point when we were developing the area having a stop for Uber and or Lyft station so people can get transportation in and have a place to go. But I wanted to know a couple things. Number one, if we could put it on the next meeting to talk to, because I think Ayers is going to be here, engineering. And I wanted to know if we can put it on the next meeting, which may be CRA, to see whether or not we can develop any areas and make sure they're developing or looking at that for potential public transportation, at least areas for drop-off pickup when we redevelop. And I didn't know if we can have maybe that discussion, if you guys were okay with that.
That's a good idea.
I thought
We've discussed in the past. I find it hard to believe we're going to find it to be economically feasible.
Okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to get their take on it and see what they think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one thing to look at, accommodating pickup drop-offs. It's another thing to actually get into the transportation business. That's pretty pricey anyway.
Understood. And then the other thing that I wanted to know is I know that Mr. Duke does meet with, I think, Debbie Mann over at Port Richey on occasion, or Newport Richey, whether or not we can empower him to maybe just raise that as one of the issues or topics for discussion to kind of see how their public transportation is going and whether or not there's any opportunities there as well. And I didn't know if you guys were okay with him raising that issue when he meets with Newport Richey.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where to place this particular item, whether it's with MPO or discussions direct. I know that we and Newport Richey have a shared problem with essentially we don't have any places on Highway 19 that are legally you can cross with a golf cart. Yet we all know it's happening all the time. Can we work together, us, Newport Richey, the county, to engage with the state to do whatever signage, lightage, reconfiguring we can do to actually make that not only legal, but safer for those people that are doing it? I mean, I don't drive around a heck of a lot, and it's barely a time I drive by Grand Boulevard and there's not a golf cart sitting in traffic. And I can also know I probably have never seen a police report showing anybody ever getting written up for it. So it's one of those things that I think us in Newport Richey are just letting happen. And it's one of those things that if we let it happen and something happens, I just think we all look into it. Again, the who's and how's of doing that, I don't know, but just since you brought up the subject of transportation and such, I thought
But I'd like to at least explore it and let explore it. Okay.
yeah, because it's really, it's an issue that everybody's interested in, not just us, so.
Well, and also we're in the development phase, so it's a good time if we're going to do something to do it while we're developing the area. It seems like the right time. So that's why I raised the issue now.
If I could, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So a couple of items on the trolley issue. I got word today from West Pasco County Development Group, which is a function within the Pasco County government. We've been in discussion about that. They're working on a project to grant fund a trolley. It's probably a year out, the grant cycle. They want to be well prepared for that. And to do that, it'll be a year from now when they apply for the funds, and you know how those things go, months to get the funds awarded and then to implement the program. But it is something that they're very interested in. They've included me in those conversations, and I assume also including Newport Richey. Ms. Mans and I have discussed a trolley option. I've personally, professionally, I've told a lot of people, including the business owners that were here last Friday, that unless the five of you direct me to, I'm trying to keep Port Richey out of the transportation business. I'm not in that business. Others are. The county is, Newport Richey is. And so I guess my ideology is, can I partner with Newport or partner with the county in their transportation project? Obviously, the county is going to be a ways down the road unless they, you know, the commission decided to put more money to that project rather than grant funds. Ms. Mans and I had discussed, it's been several months ago, probably 6 months ago, the possibility of Port Richey helping with funding and utilizing her system to run a trolley from Main Street up Grand Boulevard across 19 into the Cody River Landing and then back down Grand. She was just at the beginning of her trolley business running up and down Main Street and asked that I kind of hold off on that until she gets the kinks worked out in her own system. So it probably is time, and I'd be glad to go back to her the next time we meet. We get together once a month. But I'll put that on our agenda and see where she is, see if she's got the kinks worked out of her trolley system, and see if there might be an opportunity to partner with Newport. And like I said, my intent is to not be in the transportation business. I don't want to set up a trolley bus system. You know, there's others doing it.
That's where I'm at.
Now, if I can help fund it, or if I can, you know, be a partner, that's what I'm looking for.
I agree, but I think that some of the folks in the county and Newport Richey want to come over to Port Richey and have transportation. So there may be a way to let them fund it or run it per se, but we would still have to facilitate an area for the stops and kind of work with them on our end. And that's kind of what I was trying to see if you could feel
And
out.
on that particular topic, I did discuss with Mr. Martin, again, several months ago, this idea, and we'll need to ask him in 2 weeks. And, you know, I told him this is something the city, county, and our neighbors are looking at. We ought to put that into the design. You know, where would we put trolley stops? How would that work? And let's do it now before we're moving dirt. So we'll get an update from him on that. I'll give him a heads up that that'll be part of what we're looking for.
Thank you. The other item that I was going to bring up has more to do with the Cody River Landing project. So what I wanted to do is I'll just bring that up in the CRA meeting, or not, yeah, CRA meeting instead. So, you know, I believe that's all that I had. I just wanted to start with Vice Mayor Kinsella and see if you had.
I don't have anything at this time, thank you.
Mr. Colombo?
Got two things moving forward. The city manager mentioned kind of preliminarily looking at the budgeting process. I'm very happy to see that we have an employee building inspector coming on. That was one of my two big wants coming into this year. As far as I'm concerned, we're supposed to have one, we should have one, and I'm happy to see that happening. Been kicking around my head the last subject of the meeting when it comes to purchasing. And I'm inclined to want to consider the potential of adding a staff member who specializes in purchasing and perhaps even coordinating with the many different engineers we have on the many different projects we have. And actually bringing that in-house within the confines of the finance department. I feel that we probably could use somebody that's really has purchasing expertise within the framework of the laws of the state of Florida and our own personal codes. And just the thought I'm throwing out there, I'm not locked into it, but I just wanted to kind of throw that idea out there.
And if I may, just on that topic and the budget issue, on that topic, I think we did at some point, we just had it titled as the assistant city manager, and I think Jocelyn had PhD education and was well versed in procurement, and I think she did that, if I'm not mistaken, for the city for a very long time.
Yeah,
Probably
but
close to 10 years.
on the flip side is, I don't see this person rising to the managerial level of an assistant city manager. I see this as a person at a management level, but under a director level, so to speak.
Understood, okay.
Basically focused, a focused individual that can, can basically take the load off all the other department heads and, deal with the paperwork, the putting out of bids, the soliciting of bids, make sure it's done according to state law and city code, and taking that burden off the other department heads.
And all the work that goes with it, advertising, calling all the vendors, all that.
Advertising, yeah, exactly. So
Right. No, I
I
understand.
really would like to take a look at that. One other rather minor thing I've been meaning to point out, and it's something of very little significance, but it drives me nuts every time I do it, is when you drive up Leo Kidd Avenue to Ridge Road, and you come to two lanes, and the left lane is a turn lane and a through lane, and the right lane is a turn lane only. And I forever see traffic backed up in the right lane because there's one person who wants to go through and everybody else wants to take a right on Ridge Road. It just seems that it should be swapped. There's hardly anybody in the left-hand turn lane going towards 19.
Well, for repaving and restriping the roads, it's probably the time.
You
to
don't have to
address it.
repave, I'm just, one.
You'd have to restripe and resign and all that, so.
One lane has a turn arrow, the other lane has a straight ahead and a turn. I'm suggesting we swap the arrows.
So you'd have to change the whole light cycle and everything else, I would imagine. Not that you're
Not me
saying,
personally,
no,
no.
someone would have to do that, so.
Yes.
We're gonna have you restriping it.
Yeah,
I could probably do that, yeah.
so, all right.
Yeah, I just, put that bug in it. I mean, but John and some of the city staff, you probably encounter it way more than I do, but, that's, sometimes it's a nice little way to get off of 19 and get out here to City Hall, and you get on Leo Kidd, and there you are in a line of 10 cars, behind the one car that wants to go straight, and there's a turn lane, and there's one single car there waiting to turn left and no other cars. So it just seems like a slight modification there. I would leave that up to the police department and those who study traffic. It's just my observation.
On the budget process, you touched on it, and I think Mr. Dew touched on it. Kind of format-wise, I like the idea of having each department head kind of put together the bigger items that may need to be purchased, so we can discuss them kind of far out in advance. And I think it's important on bigger purchases, for example, with the fire truck, I think we talked about probably 6 months out to a year out, so we had time to plan and budget around it. And I didn't know if you guys wanted to go about it that way again this year.
I assume, my personal assumption, John, you obviously speak for yourself, that you're looking to do sort of a broad brush starting in January, and then we'll start, honing in on it. I mean, I don't necessarily know right now is the time to send the department heads scrambling for their wish list for next year, because we don't really know what a lot of that is right now. But
Right, yeah, until you actually have numbers. And, you get some of the estimates, some of the estimates in May, some of the hard numbers in mid-July.
Sure.
And at that point, now we know what we're gonna get. Now it's, now how are we going to spend it? I mean, we can talk about wish lists and, what your input is to the things that we might want to purchase. But there's a timing. You have to know what money's coming in. So I'd be glad to, put that together. Department heads already have some idea. We've been talking about it. They're thinking about it. So, but we can sure put that together. And
One item that may be helpful is if there's a vac truck or a fire truck or something that has to be coming down the pike to know that.
That's what I'm saying, the $500,000 trucks,
Yeah.
I like to know about those in advance if we
Yeah,
can.
not necessarily the pickup truck or anything like that, but the big,
Well, I mean, again, time flies and sometimes I lose track of how new a new item is, but it seems that, our major trucks, i.e. brush trucks, fire trucks, Vector trucks, were relatively early. into
I
the
agree. I
price.
don't know if there's another,
Yeah, I don't know either. There would maybe some big articulated loader out there that's also a
Exactly.
pretty pricey item. And I'm not aware of just how old that item is, so.
And the other thing that I wanted to do as we start to develop the budget process for next year is know how we're looking this year, because I think how we finish out this year kind of plays into where we're going next year too, in terms of the budget process itself. And I don't know if we've really had too many updates, in
Well,
terms
we're
of,
just wrapping up the first quarter of the fiscal year
Sure.
right now, so, yeah.
right, but when you get about halfway through, it becomes really important to monitor how much money we have versus what we're spending. Make sure we're on target for the budget. So when we go through the budget process, we should be looking at what's going on this year as well as going into the next year. So if we can get updates as we go into the budget process, it would be helpful.
Will do.
Thanks. And that's all that I had planned off.
I got nothing else on the top.
Councilwoman Rodriguez, good evening.
Hi, I have two things. Last meeting, we talked about codes and reviewing them, and the fence was going to be on this agenda, and it's not.
Correct. By consensus, I think we voted to ask to put it on.
Right. So can I have it on next agenda and have the appropriate people here to answer our questions? Because that's why we tabled it last time,
Yes.
because we didn't have the appropriate people.
We didn't table it, that's taking it out. I think the proper term is continued it till,
Okay, well, whatever the
Right.
term is, we
Right.
voted to put it on for
Correct.
this agenda, and it's not on. So I would respectfully request that we have it next agenda.
we'll do.
Thank you. And the next thing I was thinking on is, we kind of touched on this a couple months back, is I really kind of think we need to look at a strategic plan. Have we ever had a strategic plan for the city?
We have.
Like one that like looks in the distance, like not just in the near future, the next year. What do we want to do in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Has that ever been addressed?
I'm the city historian also.
Yes, thank you.
I believe it was 2008 or 2009. City manager Richard Reed spent a considerable amount of time doing that. It's been reduced to writing. I'm sure it's here in the city. I'm not going to say it. Not very interesting. That's the only one I've ever heard of.
I think that would help. We're talking about the budget process. It's really hard to do a budget when we kind of don't know where we. I mean, the strategic planning process is built around the vision of where we want to go. What do the citizens want? What do we want? What do the employees think we need? I just think we need to look at a strategic process plan that we can focus on. We know we need to do water lines. There are certain things that we need to build into this strategic plan, and that we need to plan for our budget for the future, not just 6 months from now or this coming budget. What are we doing the budget after that, the budget after that?
No, and I've touched on that in the budget, going towards roads. You can't maintain a city like that. So I think you're right, having a strategic plan that addresses roads, addresses infrastructure, the stormwater issues, all that, we can bake it into a master plan.
And we need to include not only the residents, but the businesses, the business owners, the employees. They might not live here, but they see, they're intimate with everything that's going on here, and they'll know what we're doing great and what we need to improve on. And I think that's very important that we look at that as a whole.
But what I'm wondering is if we can get a copy of the old plan that we have
That'd
and
be
just
great.
maybe work off it.
Two things. I'll track that document down. We also have a comprehensive plan that is due for an update,
Okay.
and our planner is working on that now.
Okay, good.
And that has some of what you're talking about, kind of a vision for what this body, if not these individuals, what this body and with public input saw as the vision for this community. And it's a fascinating read. And there are things in there that say, this is what we want to do, this is what we shall do. But I'll track both of those down for you and get those to you.
Well, it's not, and you do have some capital improvement things done that you've already, prorated out certain projects amongst years. Not that necessarily that's the direction we want to go, but I can recall one that had breakdown on the water main replacements over the next 17 years or something like that. I mean, I know you've already got materials like this, it's kind of bundling them together into a sort of a comprehensive overview package. But yeah, it'd be fun to watch the old one and see just how much of that actually came to be reality.
And we might not want to change anything, but I think we need to look at it. And what's the vision? Do we want to continue to stay the bedroom community, or do we want to grow? Do we want to expand? What do we all want?
That's a strategic
Yeah,
plan.
keep in
Comprehensive
mind,
plan is
we
zoning.
have limited
I'm sorry?
resources.
That's a strategic
Yeah.
plan.
I mean, you need to find.
Comprehensive plan is zoning. That's where you're gonna expand and what uses you're gonna have, which is somewhat, a subset of it. But strategic plans, do you wanna be an urban community? Do you wanna stay the same? Do you wanna grow? Do you wanna look for growth, or you wanna stay away from growth? Those kind of things, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what Richard Reed's, they spent considerable amount of time doing.
Absolutely, and
That's a
that's,
strategic plan.
absolutely, and I think that needs to be driven by the residents and the business owners, and of course us, but we are residents, so, and the employees, like I said, they're intimate with what's going on, and they know what needs to be fixed and not fixed. I think we need to look at all of that.
One thing I found interesting, if I may, you said the city planner is doing a comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan actually supports the strategic plan.
Right, that's right.
So
Subset of it, right.
we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here, in that we have the planner doing the comprehensive plan, but we haven't given her the strategic plan or updated it accordingly for the comprehensive plan. So we may want to put the brakes on one a little bit until we figure out the other.
So how would we drive that train?
So when we put the strategic plan on, at least for some topic of discussion, and we'll have that discussion and then work down from there.
Yeah, let's look at the last one, see what that one looked like. And if John can dig up one from some other city, we'll look at that too,
I'll have it for you in 2 weeks.
Very good. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Rebuttal, anybody? Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. I saw a lot of items on this agenda. If you guys don't mind, before we look for a motion, there were a bunch of items that said City of Newport Richey items in here with fairly large cash values attached for sewer. And my question is whether or not that's something that we collect from our citizens and then is pay back over to Newport Richey. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah, that's our, the fees that we pay to Newport to take our sewer. But yes, that is currently and is being built into the new rate study.
Okay.
The fact that either Newport or Pasco County takes and treats our sewage.
Okay.
And we pay them for that, and it's metered when it goes out of the city, and those are the numbers you're seeing.
That's the question that I had. I'm looking for a motion if there's no other questions.
Quick question along that line. I'm looking at this is going back 6 months. Is that the appropriate? I'm reading here, it's dated back July, August, September, October. We're that far back.
Well, is it a matter of where that far back, or they're that far back in billing? I don't know.
Yes, they're behind the bill. So we
We
just,
can't pay something we haven't got a bill for yet.
we have to remind them to get our invoices. We have to ask for
So
them.
as long as it's not our.
That don't have.
That was simple.
And they'll remember one day, and we'll get a really large invoice, so.
I have one quick question. If you look at the sewer on limit, you have 18,000 one month, 27,000 next month, and then you have $51,000. That's 3 times the amount of sewage going out of that one plant in 1 month.
What month was it?
September through October.
Rainwater, we're processing rainwater.
Well, we didn't have that same curve on Broadway, so it actually went down in September.
Bad incursion down there. I understand what you're saying, yeah. There's no other rational excuse in my mind. We can go over to Sal and ask him, but,
I'm just saying, is it worth checking a meter or something that?
When an invoice actually comes back, obviously finance will let us know. We'll go and inspect it and talk to the Newport Richey, check the meter and stuff like that. That was verified. If I'm correct, that's probably could be due to stormwater intrusion. That'd be one reason why. I would have to check and see if there was any storms or anything. I can't remember the dates. I'll investigate between 9:30 and 10:31.
It just stormed over here,
but-
didn't storm over here, they're all the same. Right, come on. No, you should bring that up, explain.
But the meter readings were verified before we paid the invoice.
Very localized storm. With the other three.
Yeah,
Stormed over here.
that's why I was wondering about storms too, but it does go down in the other one. So
No, it would have gone up on the other one.
It would have gone up on the other one if you
Yeah,
have
it's a very
storms.
small storm, huh?
Right.
I understand, you know, I'm a bit of a weather freak, okay? And I can't tell you how many days there were this past fall where we were getting blasted on the west side of 19 and it wasn't on the north side, you know, or it was different. They were getting blasted in Arbor Isles, we were getting nothing. We had a lot of storms were rolling in out of the Gulf and the line was hanging right over just the coast, and it was dumping tons of water that other areas weren't getting. And, you know, you can look it up sometime, you know.
Well, Broadway got a drought that.
I understand that. You Google
why my water bill is
Google
so
up
high.
1 inch of, volume of 1 inch of rain over 1 acre, and you will find an astounding amount of thousands of gallons, and that's just the way it goes.
Anyway,
All right, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor? Aye. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to council business. By vote of the council, we've elected to move the new city attorney selection from the bottom up to the top. So I'm going to ask Mr. Matthew or Mr. Duke, who wants that one? Mr. Duke?
The responses to the advertisements that we've received are in your packet. We did add a couple of places to advertise as you had requested. And I would reiterate, Mr. Matthews made it clear that the
Before we go any further,
Did he make it abundantly clear?
it was abundantly clear in writing.
Clarify that.
so one of the things that I wanted to do before we start addressing council or going into any discussion is, this is an item that I think we should at least consider and put some weight on what our city attorney now, if he has an opinion one way or the other after reviewing. I don't know if you've reviewed everything, Mr. Matthew, but did you have an opinion or any recommendations for us?
So, Council wants? Yeah. You want me to?
You guys,
I'd be
Yes.
Surprised you want to do it. Sure. Can't give you the names here, but I can tell you this, Sons, Mr. Trask, right? Yeah. I looked at all of the resumes that I got, and outside of Mr. Trask's firm, I found the others to have zero experience, not even close, nothing.
I found, being a non-lawyer, I found the exact same thing.
Yeah, and, trial experience with the public defender or the state attorney's office, no offense. He's regional counsel, is what he does. It is,
but I didn't apply either.
Smart man. And they all become judges, and that's a problem too. That's my political comment of the day.
More judges.
And it's no experience, and I'm sure they're very fine resumes, very fine people. Not that Port Richey or a small city is that hard to represent, but you do need a certain amount of background to do this, and we are a full-service city. Okay, we have a CRA, so we're not. The only difference between Port Richey and Miami is the fact that they got about 100 more lawyers than we do. Okay, so we have all the same issues, and I know Mr. Trask by reputation, but not a friend or anything. I don't think I know him socially in any way. He was his firm was president of the Municipal Attorneys Association. Once a year, I go down there into a 3 or 4 day seminar and conference, and I think Mr. Trask was president at one point in time. I think he represents at least a dozen cities in Pinellas County. He's been around for years doing this. So I guess, I don't know a woman that's put in here. I guess it's Nancy Meyer. I do not know her, but I know she's there. I know she was a senior county attorney. County law representing county and the city are somewhat analogous, but she was senior county attorney, which is a pretty serious position. That means you've either worked your way up or you knew what you were doing somewhere else by reputation. But in any event, any questions she would have, she could surely go to Mr. Trask and about a dozen other lawyers there that have addressed all of these issues. So as far as right now, I think you only have one person to choose from. It's just a matter of, it's not like you signed, you engaged a long retainer contract or anything with a firm. You just go on the hourly rate it's going to be. And I think the strong way, Mr. Trask, but you can fire the lawyer at any time. You understand what I mean? Just like you could fire me at any time. And so right now, that's where you stand after 4.5 months.
Thank you. I see that there were some folks that look lawyerly in the room.
You'll just have a secret handshake or something?
No, it's so I wanted to invite you guys to introduce yourselves and maybe to our council here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nancy Meyer with Trask Daniel, and this is Mr. Tom Trask, who was just mentioned, one of the partners at Trask Daniel.
How y'all doing tonight?
Doing very well. Thanks for attending our council meeting.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for agreeing to move us closer on the beginning of the agenda so we can not sit here and bother you all night and stare at you as you wonder why our lawyer is staring at us, because it always makes people nervous. So we do appreciate that. I just wanted to come by because it is my name on the application, so you can see me and know who I am, know who you're talking about when you're looking at this application. So from my background, I'll let you know I did start as a prosecutor for Pinellas County. Most of us do, most lawyers, a lot of lawyers do, not all. I was there for 4 years, then I went to private practice in St. Pete doing workers' comp defense for about 10 years. Then I went to the Pinellas County Attorney's Office, where I was a senior county attorney in the litigation department. So I litigated cases of people suing the county or the county needing to sue somebody for whatever reason. I am starting my 3rd year with Trask Daniel. As has been mentioned, and as you can see from the response, Trask Daniel does municipal law. That is the majority of what is done. There are 6 board-certified attorneys in city, county, local government. I am one of them. So yes, if I don't know the answer, Mr. Trask will, Mr. Daniel will, Mr. Eschenfelder will, someone will. I assure you that whatever issue may come up, someone at the firm has probably already handled it. We would have the resources to assist with that. I don't have anything else really to say, unless Mr. Trask has something to add on.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about the law firm. I know obviously you've got the response to the RFP. The law firm has been in existence for over 50 years. We've been representing municipalities. We currently represent about 12 municipalities. I've been in the practice for 34 years now. City attorney for Oldsmar, Madeira Beach, and Bel Air Bluffs for some period of time. Oldsmar, for example, since 1996. I think that those long-term relationships that we have with cities right now, you can understand that you feel some comfort in the law firm. As to Mr. Matthew, thank you, for recognizing us for sure. But we are known statewide, but we concentrate our practice in this area of the state of Florida. We represent the Florida League of Cities also in defense of cities from basically Hernando County all the way down to Everglades City. So we've got a wide swath of representation of municipalities other than the one that we currently represent as city attorneys. So we think that we have the staff to handle all your needs. We are basically lawyers that handle basically everything that deals with municipalities and municipal work. We have experts in code enforcement and procurement. I noticed that was a conversation earlier, employment law, and all forms of litigation in relation to representing municipalities. So we'd like the opportunity to represent you, and Nancy has already spoken. She's a great part of our family firm, and we think she'll do a great job for you. But
one of the things that I credit now for is it's been here a long time, and I don't think we've been in litigation for anything. And I think there's been a lot of foresight from our city attorney into a lot of the issues that you've mentioned. My goal is, at least my personal goal for the city, is to continue having counsel that steers the city in a way where we don't have to litigate certain issues. That's the goal. So that's what I'm hoping for the city. Because obviously, if you head off some of these issues up front, they are much cheaper and better to deal with up front than on the back end in court. So that's one of the expectations that I have from you, if you will, because I think our attorney has done that better than I've ever seen before. And I trade him an attorney, albeit outside of municipal law, and that's generally the best way to go if you can. So, but one of the things that I wanted you just to touch on, Miss Nancy, is it Meyer or Myers?
No, it's M-E-Y-E-R.
Okay. I think that when you look at the resume, we talk about a county attorney's office, and I know what that is because I have a defense firm, so I deal with people that have ordinance violations, zoning problems in the county. Obviously I don't do it here, it'd be a conflict anyways. But I deal with the county attorney's office on the same exact issues that I see come through the city. I wanted you just to kind of touch on the similarities, if you can, between what you did in the county attorney's office and what you would be doing here in the city.
You are right. There are a lot of similarities. But when I was at the county attorney's office for Pinellas County, like I mentioned, I was in the litigation department. So I didn't represent boards. I didn't sit with boards, but I was the one that was dealing with it when the person who maybe did not head off the problem. So I got the litigation. I got the back end of it. So I, of course, learned from that process and the back end what could have been done differently in the front end, and things you can look for to try to avoid having me involved. But I was never that front part. So I have learned from that, from the different boards, personnel board, code enforcement, public works, animal control, all of them, all the different departments that a county or a city may have in some fashion, in some sort of litigation. I'm trying to think if there's any departments I didn't come into contact with. Red lights, I mean, all of it. Transportation, it was all of it was connected at some point.
And I think one of our biggest issues is the zoning and land use and those issues, and
Yes.
I'm sure you've dealt with that
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Yes. And the litigation in the end. Yes.
And you also have experience with workers' comp.
Yes. A lot of experience in work comp. I'm not currently doing work comp defense. I'm
Having that experience.
yes.
And, oh, by the way, you will be city parliamentarian too.
Okay.
Just to let you know, you have an extra job in there. And to Mr. Trask, having represented Madeira Beach, we can be, shall we say, equally as colorful as they can.
Used to be.
I was gonna say, we're
I
not
said
anymore.
can be, I just said
Could.
can be.
The past tense.
Was.
We have known to have been.
All right, Bill.
I have no questions. I concur with what Jim said and what everything says. To me, they were the most experienced and only ones. To me, there's only one choice.
I mean, just to interject, I mean, I kind of, coming in.
Thank you, by the way.
So thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you very much. And, coming into this, kind of hoped we would have found like a Joe Pollock who already represented one or two of the local cities, but just not out there. So obviously, if there was one out there and was interested, we would have heard from him by now. So, and I agree with Jim 100%. I went through all these, and the other attorneys look like fine attorneys, but I saw absolutely no municipal experience in any of the other attorneys. So there's Trask sitting right there with a ton of experience. So, and again, there's a lot to be said for essentially hiring a firm. There's depth. So,
Can I just say one other thing? I don't know if it was in Nancy, materials received.
Yes, sir.
You probably already know that the council meets on the second and fourth Tuesdays,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Scheduling purposes.
Yes.
The city could also prosecute code enforcement through a special magistrate or the county system. The city has, for the last 5-6 years, been using the county system. We found that works good. And so those are set by the county. There's arraignment dates, final hearings you set. Whoever's doing it, I guess Anderson or whatever's still doing it, it's probably once a month, I guess, but you get those 6 months in advance, those dates. As far as any other hearings, you also have to be present for Planning and Zoning Board as well as Board of Adjustment. In the last calendar year, I probably went to one of those. you probably know better, Veronica, right? One, maybe two a year, and they're set as a function of your schedule. And those are the time commitments, okay, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Nancy Meyer from Trustin out as next city attorney.
Second. Is there any need for any discussion beforehand? Unless, the public, I wanted to invite the public to speak. Nobody signed up for this item, but certainly by show of hands, if anyone wants to speak. Seeing no one, let's put it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Can you go? No.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Look forward to working with
Welcome,
you
Port
guys.
Richie.
I kind of wanted to be here for the whole meeting. We could have got,
Correct.
we could have got some free legal advice off of it.
Well, there's no such thing as free.
No free labor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What you pay for.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next item, which is going to be the 5105 Bay Boulevard demolition appeal, which this item was continued, if that's the proper term, from the last meeting to this meeting. And I wanted to invite Mr. Du to introduce this item.
So I believe we have counsel for the property owner
Yeah, you want me to take it?
on Zoom, please.
Oh, is he here?
Is he on Zoom?
Yes,
On Zoom, he said.
he is.
But just audio, so?
He's in the ceiling.
Let me.
No,
Oh, there he is.
He's up there.
That Mr. Reisman, right? Mr. Reisman, can you hear me? Jim Matthew?
Yes, Marco Reisman here. It's a little bit garbled. The microphone from the podium is crystal clear, but the other microphones are a little bit hard to hear. Doing the best I can here, and I hope you can hear me.
Sure. We can accommodate. Give us a minute here.
And then just make sure if you're not talking, turn the other ones on.
Yeah,
Turn yours off, Scott.
Let's turn all of ours
Turn yours off.
Is that easier?
Is it my turn to speak?
Now, Mr. Reisman, can you hear better now?
Yes, very much better. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. I'm going to introduce the agenda item. As council may recall, this is an appeal by the homeowner represented by Mr. Reisman. We're interested parties of, it's in foreclosure. The mortgage company has been noticed. They have not appeared. This, at the last council meeting, we addressed the fact that Mr. Reisman, who represents the owner of the property, has filed an appeal of the notice of order for demolition. Order for demolition was filed and served back in April of 2022. And I'd like to point out to the council that if you go to page, I believe it's, you can see it about page 50, I guess. I'm trying to find it here. I highlighted it. But page 55 has the notice there. There's numerous notices. And that's the notice of demolition. The previous building official, I believe it was, determined that the property was met the standards for the city for demolition. I'm going to like to read for you those. It's not attached, but to the notice that was sent out originally, it had an attachment. Each one of these does not. Why, I don't know. Hang on a second here. Let me grab my phone. Is an attachment of the same date. And in the attachment, it refers to City Ordinance 12-630. That's the original ordinance number, but it has 7 items, 1 through 7. Let me read them. The city may demolish a structure if it meets one or more of any of these requirements. I can go down the list, but one of them is the structure or portion thereof as a result of decay, deterioration, or dilapidation is likely to fully or partially collapse. I think it's in this package somewhere. 24. Yes, it is, 24 and 25. No, thank you, I had it here. Okay, so you'll see these 7. If the city makes a determination that one or more of these items, it has the right to seek to demolish the structure. I presume the other ones that'll be relevant today, but the building official may feel differently. Number 2 says the structure is so unsanitary or so utterly fails to provide the amenities essential to decent living and that is manifestly unfit for human habitation or is likely to cause sickness or disease so as to work injury to the life, health, or safety of the general public or occupant. It could also be one of the other 5, but I don't think so, but I leave that decision to the building official. The homeowner has filed an appeal stating that the city does not have the grounds to demolish the building pursuant to that section, okay? At the last hearing we had, the matter was continued so that the building official could meet with the owners of the property's representatives, and at this point in time, my recommendation would be to ask the building and zoning official if he did meet with them. I know he did. He sent them a letter, what his opinion is now, and whether any plans have made or any offers made or to rehab the building or whatever they're going to do. And if not, then we'll let Mr. Iceberg put on whatever evidence he wants or argument. Okay?
What I'd like to do, right, is
Start here.
So if you can, would you be willing to go to the microphone and use the podium so council? Excuse me, is Mr. Alexander speaking?
No, that you
can't hear what you say. It's my turn to,
No, we're gonna invite the building official to come speak for a moment and give us an update, and then I'm gonna give you an opportunity to speak as well.
Great, thank you.
All right. Yeah, I was, after the last council meeting, we had set up to meet and go walk the property because was never given the opportunity to walk the interior of the property to see the full extent of the damage and stuff. We could only see by law, we are not allowed to enter the property without consent of the owner. So the only thing we could see was from the outside. So from the original building official, there was the trim for the outside was falling off. The back decking was falling off. The AC stand and the AC were hanging off the right side of the property. The third floor decking was dilapidated and had holes all in it, which all meets the slum and blight criteria.
so number 3 and 6 specifically.
Correct. So they had put it in for the slum and blight. In the meantime, I'm kind of picking this up. So after the last council meeting, we were to set a meeting. We sat out in the front lobby and they were going to call the next morning, set up a time. We can walk through. That didn't happen. A couple days later, they set up another appointment. I show up. It's supposed to be 2 o'clock. I wait there till 2:30. He was late, never called. I was already halfway down the road when he called. So finally, we did meet, and we met with could-be contractor, proposed contractor that was going to do the work at the property. We met with him on the evening of 12/22. Alec Barr from Florida Teal Specialty Builders met myself and Jeff Singleton, the code enforcement official for Port Richey. We started on the bottom floor and walked the interior. There was no lights. We were doing everything by phone and camera phone and everything with lights. We couldn't really get good pictures because there was no lights. This home is in a flood zone. It has no flood proofing at all downstairs at all on the very first level. There's no flood venting. There's no breakaway walls. That's one item. You get a little further back into it, there's probably a section of 40 to 50 square foot of just solid black mold in the ceiling, and some of the ceiling had fallen down. Further review, we get a little further down, the actual floor trusses or floor joists that run from a structural beam to the outside bearing points, 15 of the 30 of them were rotted at the bearing point on the outside of the wall, which is holding the second and third floors. The plywood was rotted out. You could see all the way through the outside. None of those floor traps were hurricane strapped down. The straps were there, but none of them were tied down. The rim joist around those was all rotted out. There's a couple concrete cells that are bearing points for beams that hold the second and third floors up. Were not poured. That's a structural item. No electrical outlets were downstairs at all, which is a code review item. So we tried to see as much as we could there. So then we venture up to the second floor, which would be the first main floor living area. The stairs are not to code. They do not have a bullnosing. Any stair that is less than 11 inches has to have a minimum of 3/4 inch nosing. Didn't have it. Handrail wasn't the proper height. Handrail grip wasn't the proper height. Handrail material was not the proper material. As we start moving on up, it's starting to get, there's lights in. Code and I had asked if we were okay to take pictures. He wasn't comfortable giving us that authority to do it because it wasn't his property. I understand, but we took as much visual as we could. And the most visual, there's all kinds of water leaks, water lines, to where you could see dry water spots on the drywall and exterior walls, mostly around where your decks were meeting in with the main structure or around windows. The kitchen was pretty much complete, 99%. It has a center island in the middle with a downdraft cooktop. What that is instead of having a hood above it like you do at your home now, this one draws from down below and dispenses out. This one, well, there was no access panel to it. The contractor pulled the back of the cabinets off. There's no ductwork connected to it, so the house has been used. You can tell that the cooktop and everything was done, so all the venting is going right inside this dead part of the cabinet. Venture out to the decking on the first first living area, multiple. It'd be the second floor, would be your first main living area. The railings were rotting. The plywood that was down as the decking out there had a sort of fiberglass material that was laid over the top. The plywood that was used is not exterior grade plywood. It's just regular interior grade plywood. So it's eventually going to finish rotting out. None of that had been replaced that we had seen. The replaced stuff was up on the next level, out off the master bedroom. We made it to the master bedroom, the third floor, but it would be the second living floor. The master bedroom has a sliding glass door or French doors that go out onto the deck. It's rotted out. The floor's rotted out because it's getting water intrusion. From what I can tell from, not physically stepping out on the deck because I didn't trust it, I don't think there's any flashing or anything that's going in there to where the deck meets the house. I think it's just wood against wood, and that's what's rotting out. Bathroom, master bath's not finished. The plywood that did get replaced, that the son had told us that he replaced at the last meeting, same thing. It's not exterior grade plywood, it's just regular interior grade plywood. So it's not going to last either. They did put the railing back up. They did take the AC chase and the AC off the right side of the house. The master bath itself is not complete. It's not finished. It's still in a rough stage. It has Durock, which is a concrete board walls up. None of the plumbing's been trimmed out. They have had a couple other plumbing leaks in there that the contractor had pointed out to us. There's little holes cut in the walls where they've had to replace some pipes. They're replacing some floors and everything. We've spent probably an hour and 15 minutes there maybe. And when we had left, the contractor was going to get back with the owners and see what it is that they wanted to do. I suggested to them that they needed a structural engineer to come out and do an assessment because there's a lot of structural issues on the inside of the house. In my professional opinion, the house is not livable. I think it's a safety issue, especially with all the rotted floor trusses or floor joists that are on that first living floor, which would be over the living room area. The plywood's going to run out, numerous water leaks. Like I said, if we get a flood, there's no flood prevention downstairs at all. So my recommendation was to the contractor was to get an engineer, get an assessment, give me a timeline on when when the inspection will take place and what your timeline for making the repairs are. Come down, we'll sit down, we'll pull the permit for everything that needs to be done and get the property to get going. 20 minutes after that meeting, I received an email from Alex, the contractor, walking away from the entire project. Doesn't want anything to do with it. He said his company had nothing to do with the changes or the repairs that were done prior to our meeting, and they're not going to do anything forward. So I followed up with an email to Mr. Reisman, explaining to him everything that had happened, and was asking for him if his client, if their intention is to continue to move forward, and listed everything that's in your packet that needs to be done. An engineer needs to be involved and everything. But out of my professional opinion, I revoked the certificate of occupancy on that property. And by doing so, it is not a habitable property. So no one should be living or staying in that property until we get it up to where it needs to be, either repaired, or if you folks decide to just go ahead with the demo or you want to repair it, that's up to you. I'll follow your lead. But in my opinion, it's not a habitable spot right now.
Mike, some questions.
What I wanted to do is it Mr. Reisman or Reisman? Reisman. I wanted to know.
Reisman, but either way.
Reisman. Okay, Mr. Reisman, would you like to? Because we have our main source of information at the podium. Would you like to ask him some questions, or do you want to just go ahead and speak?
Yes. Well, I could go ahead and speak. I mean, I spoke with Mr. Alexander. And after he called me late last week, and I tried calling this afternoon. I think it was a little late in the afternoon, and left a message. And here I am. And I have talked extensively with Ms. Thielak, the property owner. We understand and acknowledge the revocation of the certificate of occupancy and the present authority thereof. We got to this inspection took place on the 22nd, albeit Mr. Alexander was there, and maybe things weren't promptly done by construction representatives, including Ms. Thielak's son. We got this email, was addressed on December 28th. Ms. Thielak has been assiduously trying to get the structural engineer lined up with the holidays, and then the activity in the construction industry right now. She has not engaged the structural engineer as of right now, although is playing telephone tag with at least a couple, and is going to engage a structural engineer. She has also engaged a realtor at Compass Realty to sell this property either as is, or for an investor to come in and do all the work that needs to be done to make this habitable, to reinstate or endeavor to get a new certificate of occupancy and do what's necessary to make this right. So I'm not here to tonight to debate the various items that Mr. Alexander has pointed out. And quite frankly, it's been very thorough. This went well beyond what was originally in the original demolition order. Literally, we got notice of this barely 2 weeks ago or something like that. So with keeping the certificate of occupancy in place, the revocation thereof in place, I would ask the board to continue this once again. Mr. Alexander had indicated to me that it's not necessarily the intent to demolish this and go through that process, or whatever procedural process might entail going forward. But basically, to get this fixed.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm on board with that, and I would think that it might, given what's going on in the industry and in the market, it may take up to 60 days to get a structural engineer to put plans together, and that's what has been suggested to me. Mr. Alexander will have more experience with that and may have another viewpoint. And also, as I said, Ms. Thielak has engaged a realtor and is going to have an MLS listing going in that before the end of the week. Of course, with due notice of everything, and hopefully an ambitious investor will be inclined to come in and do what's necessary here.
So,
So that's where we're coming from, and I would ask that we have another shot at getting it. Now that we have the full list of problems as designated by Mr. Alexander, that we have the opportunity to engage a structural engineer, get it sold, do what's necessary to save this property, one way or the other.
So just to clarify, basically, there's a motion from your end on this to continue this matter at least 60 days to accomplish those items that you've discussed.
Yes, and when I say 60 days, that's what has been suggested to me. And I quite frankly, I don't know if if it'll take that long, or if that's maybe too optimistic. But by the same token, I think that would be reasonable under the circumstances, and that's what we would ask for.
So were you wanting more time, or 60 days sufficient? In other words, I don't want to do it twice where you come back and we're still with the engineer. In other words, would it be safer to set it out 90 days and see where you guys are at with it?
Well, that may be more appropriate, and again, as I said, Mr. Alexander might have a clearer viewpoint of what it takes, but it's tough hiring an engineer right now. So that's still in progress, and that might take a little longer. So, in an abundance of caution, I would ask for 90 days if that's appropriate.
Okay.
This has been going on since April.
Yeah, they filed the appeal in June.
This didn't just happen.
Yeah.
This has been going on since
There's
April.
been over 6 months to get a structural engineer, to get an architect out there to let it build.
This only became apparent when we put the demolition in, and all of a sudden now it's an emergency, when it was an emergency in April. So, I don't know. I mean, 90 days, it's already been a month since he was here, so it's, and they.
Would you guys be okay?
I understand you have trouble, I'm having trouble getting people too, but this is.
Well, if there's nobody living in there, it diminishes the safety aspect or issue.
Until someone goes in there.
Yeah, it's a matter of how secure it is from people going in there. The one thing that, as Linda pointed out, this has been going on for a while to various levels, to various degrees and levels. Then the fact I find the concept of wanting 60 plus days to hire a structural engineer and also listing it on the MLS simultaneously seems somewhat at odds. I don't know how far a structural engineer is going to want to get involved in doing work on a piece of property that somebody has up for sale. But bottom line, I'm a fan of property rights. I'm not looking to just bulldoze stuff that I don't like. But I got to look at this from a practical standpoint, what direction it's going to go.
The other aspect of it is, let's say it's 90 days to get a structural, another 6 months to correct the issue. Now we're a year down the road,
And
or they
it's
sell the
deteriorating more and more and more as time
it's
goes on.
getting worse and worse. It's not getting better by itself, so.
And there's been no good faith effort since April. I mean, they've missed appointments since our last council meeting. 3 or 4 appointments to meet with Mr. Alexander. I mean, so there's been no good faith effort when they knew the importance of it. How do we know there's gonna be a good faith effort in the next 60 or 90 days?
And in reality, if there is a purchaser of it, they may come in and knock it down, so we're just telling them to knock it down ahead of time.
There was one other thing that I wanted to ask Mr. Reisman. Do you know the status of the foreclosure proceedings?
It's pending. There are no hearings pending right now, but it is pending. And actually, the mortgage company have reached out to us in terms of settling or modifying the mortgage and so forth. But we're more concerned with getting this side of the issue with this property taken care of before finalizing anything with the mortgage company. That's our intention. If this property can be sold, and I will suggest that the structural engineer aspect and the realtor aspect are not necessarily divergent, but they can work hand in hand in terms of what needs to be done and appropriate valuation and appropriate marketing of the property in terms of what needs to be done and the cost thereof. I think a review of the condition and the necessary repairs and upgrades and so forth are necessary to have an appropriate sale of the property, and an engineer more than just an appraiser. And I have tremendous respect for appraisers. I didn't mean it that way, but I think it has to go beyond just an appraiser to price out what needs to be done with this property and put a good value on it. So I think that the two things go hand in hand. I would also suggest that originally back in April and discussions in May and June involved primarily the balcony, the railing, and that air conditioning purge. And Ms. Felak has had serious medical problems. She has been in the hospital, and that may have impaired the ability to get things done and have meetings in the meantime. But when the meeting was set, and then we got together with Mr. Alexander, and now that we have a clear view of what is expected, I think we can go forward more expeditiously.
And before we go any further, person on the dais that hasn't spoken yet, and I want to make sure everyone's got a fair opportunity. Vice Mayor, Mr. Kinsella, did you want to weigh in at this point?
Yes, the only thing I'd like to say is I'd like to make a motion to approve the demolition of 5105 Bay Boulevard.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So that would be a motion to deny the appeal?
Yes. Right.
Okay. Before we move any further, anyone in the public want to speak? No one signed up? Seeing no hands.
I do have one question, if I could. The HVAC units were removed from the building, so there's no heating or cooling in it?
Get up there. Excuse me, could you, for the record, could you, just so he's responsible, recorded, okay? And as well as for Mr. Reisman.
So the HVAC units, you said the platform was removed in December of this year, so the HVAC units are no longer there, so there's no heating or cooling in the building currently?
There's the air handlers are still inside the house, but the condensers are disconnected and inside the garage. No, they're not operational. No.
So I have to get a form to vote on this. Do I need to announce that?
You should announce it now.
Okay. So, in terms of, I didn't know this was going to lead to a vote here. Voting on this, I'm going to abstain. I've had some representation previously with Ms. Sislak. I've met with her on nothing that involved anything in the city or anything like this. But just based on probably that representation, I would abstain from voting on this particular item. So I wanted to put that on the record and ask the clerk have a slip for me to fill out.
Yes, sir.
And so we can have that attached at the end of the meeting. But we have a motion, a second. I'm going to abstain from voting for that reason. Any other need for any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. So it's a 3-1 vote. Motion passes. Is there anything else? I guess that ends the item.
Yeah, unless you want to give an opportunity to speak.
Okay. No, wait.
Yeah.
Asked everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
So
could he hear that?
Can you hear what happened?
Hello? Am I being addressed? I apologize.
Yes, you're being addressed.
He's asking if he's.
Yes, I did hear. What I heard is that there's a motion. You've passed a motion to order the demolition of this property.
Yes.
To deny the appeal.
We denied the appeal.
See, someone's really got to get up on that microphone for the record.
Someone's
going to transfer.
I'm sorry? You denied the appeal.
Hey,
hold on. We're going to let Jim call it.
I'll repeat it. Mr. Reisman, can you hear me? Jim Matthew, the city attorney?
Yes, sir.
Just for technology purposes, a motion was made by Vice Mayor Kinsella to deny the appeal, seconded by Mr. McClary. Is that, did I get that right? And the motion passed 4-0, 3-1, I'm sorry, 3-1 with Councilman Colombo voting nay, and the mayor, who's also a council person, has one vote like everyone else, abstained, having done legal work for your client previously.
I will say for the record that, you know, in my conversation with Mr. Alexander, he indicated that it was not the intention to demolish, but it was the intention to get the work done. But I understand that it's certainly the council's prerogative to do that. We did not bring experts to dissect everything here at this juncture, understanding that would have the opportunity to get the structural engineer. And as I said, that prior to the December meeting and the meeting with Mr. Alexander in December, it was our understanding that the main concerns were the balcony and the air conditioning purge, and that and these other concerns really came to light literally barely 2 weeks ago. So I would ask for reconsideration on that basis and the opportunity to rectify these matters.
I guess on the dais, does anyone wish to motion to reopen this or reconsider this? So I guess that would
Includes the matter.
What's that?
It concludes the matter. We'll send that in order.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for attending today's council meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to the next item for council business, which is the second reading of ordinance 22-685 to change liquor, beer, sales times, and I'm going to pass that to Mr. Matthew for introduction.
Give me a second here. This will be the second and final reading of the ordinance eliminating any glue laws, Sunday sales of alcohol here in the city. I'll read it by title only. It's ordinance number 22-685. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Richey, State of Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 1 in general, Section 4-3, Hours of Sale, providing for severability, inclusion in code, at an effective date. Looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Going to the public.
Any need for discussion on the dais here? We'll let the public speak if anyone would like to on this item. By show of hands. No hands, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None, motion passes. We'll move on to the next item, which is the surplus of City Hall information, technology equipment, or IT equipment. I'll pass that to Mr. Jute for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff has identified a number of IT pieces of equipment that are have no residual value to the city. Would request a motion to surplus and dispose of properly.
Motion to get rid of the IT stuff.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the next item, which is the surplus of agency rifles / shotguns. I didn't know it was possible around here, but we'll pass to Mr. Ditt for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police department has made the determination, as you can see in their memorandum to me. These three items are no longer of service. There is residual value to the city, and the police chief has a plan to trade those for value on the firearms that he can use in his operation. Would request a motion to surplus the rifles, shotguns.
How long have we had a Mini 14?
I'll defer to Captain Cottage.
That rifle has been here since I started,
I'll bet.
and I've never once seen it fired.
So it's a collector's.
Do they have some vintage value? Is that what we're doing?
No, they were never any good.
Go to the museum.
The H&K may be worth something, but that Mini 14.
So the 18 ones. Motion get rid of the cops' guns.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. We'll move on to number 7, which is the consideration of fireworks. So I'm going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As requested, there's a document in this item that shows you the expenditures that were made for the previous fireworks display. And in looking at dates, it looks to us like if we want to have fireworks on the 2nd of July, that lands on a Saturday. I think in a practical and maybe operational sense, having our staff doing what they do on a Saturday evening is probably preferable to calling them out on a holiday, on the actual holiday. But as you can see, a 14-minute show is in the neighborhood of $20,000. And I thought it would be worthwhile just to make sure we're headed in the direction you want, which is we're identifying vendors who are willing to do the show on the 2nd, do it in the way that we did it last year, and do it more or less for the price. Obviously, we'd have to put it out and get quotes, but I want to make sure we're on the right track and the track that you want us. If you want fireworks on the 4th of July Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, whichever that is. That's different than if we are going to do it on Saturday. Do I have the dates right, Sal?
It's July 1st. You want
July 1st, I'm sorry. And that's a Saturday.
What's the 4th again?
Tuesday.
Today after
Tuesday.
2, 3, 4. Yes, sir. Tuesday.
We don't have a council meeting, do we?
Not on the 4th of July.
Or, that's just kind of hard to have a second.
Hard to have the board.
No, I'm talking about on the 1st is the Saturday before. Okay.
And that would be our staff suggestion that we,
All right.
It is overtime for some, but if we're going to do it on the 4th, it's going to be holiday pay. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but personally, I'd rather my folks were at home with their families on the 4th of July.
So the recommendations for the 1st.
How does this match up with, generally speaking, Newport does the weekend prior?
I don't know. I can ask Debbie.
I don't like to bump into their show. Usually we follow them. Yeah. The one thing I would like to see is, having been in the business myself, the last couple of shows have been, in my book, okay. I think we can do a lot better. I didn't see any shells to me look like they were bigger than 2-3 inches, which in my experience we used to use for volleys and mass launchings, not signature shells. We would shoot 3, 4, 5 up to 6. You can shoot up to a 6-inch shell safely in Miller's Bayou. And basically what I would like to have this go out to bid to some other companies. Orlando Special Effects has been doing it for a while now. I've seen their setups of their pontoon boats, and half the material on there is consumer stuff that you buy up on the corner. It's not professional grade fireworks, which is odd to me because professional grade fireworks are actually cheaper, 10 times better and cheaper than a consumer grade stuff. I would like to see whoever shoots the fireworks spec out exactly what material they are shooting, not just we're going to give you 14 minutes for $14,000, i.e. $1,000 a minute.
We want more power.
We want. Listen, I'll tell you.
I motion we hire Bill to do it.
We had, no, that won't work.
Hold on, give it a shot. He's asking for a bigger bang for our buck.
I'm looking for a wow factor. You know, the last shows have been nice shows. It's been a while since we've had a show in the Bayou that had the wow factor to where everybody around the Bayou went wow, and you could see it from Jim's house, or Jim's office. A 6-inch shell goes up 600 feet, essentially bursts 600 feet wide. 3-inch shell is much, much smaller, much, much lower. It's nice. I'm not saying the shows we've had recently haven't been a lot of fun for the folks who are watching, but the shows we've shot in the past, and what I would like to see is a show that you don't have to go to the park to get the full effect. You can be anywhere around Miller's Bayou and go.
Still wants them to be in South Carolina.
I held an ATF license for a long time.
I make my motion again. Bill do it.
ATF low explosives license. So I've shot many commercial shows from small ones. You'd actually be amazed at how good a show you can use to shoot in commercial cakes. There's cakes that actually have tubes up to 3 inches. There's a variety of ways to go, but we've been kind of going along with this one company's sort of, will give us this money and we'll do something.
I nominate Bill as commissioner of Boone.
I'm perfectly happy to sit in and just sit in the back corner when y'all are working on this. It's something I enjoyed doing when I did.
So the request is to shop a little bit better on the vendors, is what you're asking. Okay.
That was a long way to say that, Bill.
Yep.
And to say that I hope for some better product and not to break the bank doing it. I will understand it.
And tentatively, the first is good, but I think we want to know where Newport's at as well.
I just tried to look online, that's what I was trying to do, I can't seem to
Yeah,
find it, so maybe Debbie Mann will know, if you call Debbie, ask her.
I don't, it's usually,
Because I agree, we shouldn't do it on the same
usually
night.
Kia Fest is involved in Main
Oh, yeah,
Street.
Kia Fest. I'll look
And
it
I'm
up.
not sure exactly, it won't be up there, they're not, trust me, they're not that end. Kia Fest, Main Street. Again, this is another one of those things where I would highly suggest that, since you now have such a wonderful working relationship with the businesses down in the waterfront district, they're one of the main beneficiaries of a real good fireworks show. And Kia Fest, by the way, sponsors a good chunk of the fees of their fireworks show, and I sure as heck would like to see some of the businesses kicking in. Again, the way they do it down there, Main Street runs it. Kia Fest is a contributor as well as the city, and a lot of the city's contributions is personnel, logistics, putting up porta potties and all that sort of stuff. So, there's a lot of ways to look at how we go about doing this. I would like to explore that.
I'm all for making it big, and I'm all for not putting it on July 4th, so.
Again, if we can get vendors, if we can get, businesses involved, that means more money, that means more product, that means a better show.
They say we get 10-inch shells.
No, anything over 6 has to be buried. It doesn't work in the bayou.
Oh, well.
You gotta bury the guns.
So this is not an action item, so that was just open for discussion.
I just need some guidance.
So- Could've just called Bill and you could've gotten everything you needed.
By the way, if you hire somebody and need the guns, I actually have the guns. I'm perfectly happy to let them use them for nothing.
I will call Newport tomorrow and make sure we're not doubling up, and if we're not doubling up,
Tell Newport it's on, because we got Bill now, back in
I will move it forward.
Right. I think that closes out our council business, moves us to old business. I see that Mr. Duke is down here for old business, so I was gonna let him start going on the diet.
Why would you do it then like that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've hit all of these in my initial report. Still on track with design process for the limestone pier. You received that timeline, I believe, 4 weeks ago, so that's on track. I did mention the street projects with ARPA funding. Cody Roof Landing, Mr. Martin will be here in 2 weeks. He'll have a full update for us. He was expecting an answer, I believe, from Duke this week. FDOT got a little convoluted. They brought some other people in to help with approvals, and that may delay their decision making. So Chris will bring us up to date on where that is. And then I did mention the rate study, where we are with that.
Any old business?
Yeah, me personally, I'd just like to see the city stay on top of the street project, and so we don't lose any of that ARPA funds. So that, I'll keep asking every meeting.
Understood. And I did bring that up to the people we're working with, and they were confident that we're on track. They have a good idea of where we want to go, and they assured us they would be able to spend the money that we have in a, I'll say, timely fashion. They mentioned 6 months, and so that's good, because it feels like we have a lot of time, but I agree, we don't want to sit around. So you keep asking, I'll keep bringing you up to date.
Thank you, sir.
The only item I had was echoing what Linda had said regarding feedback from our code enforcement and our building officials regarding updates to our codes.
We're working on that, and by working on it, the building official, code enforcement, and other staff, I've tasked them with identifying places in the code where it's fuzzy, where it's contradictory, where it just doesn't make sense. And I've asked Mr. Alexander to, in particular, to find those codes that are in that troublesome category, and then identify either borrowing from others or, code that already exists. Identify what, in his opinion, it should look like, so that he and Jeff can go out and do their job. So that's in process. We talked about it in our department head meeting Monday. My intent as we develop those, once we get a particular code finished, here's what it is, here's why it's a problem, here's what we think the solution is, we'll bring that to you. I don't want to bring you 50 pages of code, but you may get 20 meetings in a row where we've got 1 or 2 or 3 code issues. And obviously that'll run through Mr. Matthew and in two weeks.
Oh, he's gone. He's out the door. He's showing up in Bermuda next week.
We're talking about it the next meeting, be just fine.
For the next 2 weeks, I'll run it by Mr. Matthew, and then after that, Ms. Meyer. But that's what I mean by it's in process. I have nothing.
Yeah, I do have something. CAC met. I thought Dave was going to talk about this. We want to do a meet and greet at Lighthouse Subs, which is behind the new, where the Farm Fresh, what was that called?
Fresh Grill.
Fresh Grill was. And we wanted to know if we wanted to do, if the city would be interested in doing a ribbon cutting. I know that Eric and Dave had spoken to them. I don't know any details. They spoke about a date, so I don't know if you guys want to share a date or whatever. I don't know what the plan was. Okay. Is that okay?
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I was expecting to have this as an agenda, but we didn't have any committee reports, so I didn't know where you guys were going with this. But anyway, we had an opportunity of talking with the Lighthouse Sub folks. We had some preliminary discussion at our last meeting, and look at them as potential ribbon cutting for their new business, as well as a meet and greet there. From our initial conversation with Jay, who wasn't there, he'd cut himself, but his son was there, Philip, indicated that he would embrace that and look forward to that, and could do that on the 8th, and which would be our normal second Wednesday is when we like to do that meet and greet from 5:30 to, 7? That was the time we discussed, and certainly we'd like to encourage, the city manager and council, and importantly the mayor, embrace the business. He's looking to partner with the business, the Bayou Business Group that met last Friday also, and be engaged as a community-minded business. He indicated that he's already dropped pizzas off over there to the firehouse and the police guys and everything. So he'd be looking to do that. So if you guys could make that date, we can work around that. February 8th.
We did the ribbon cutting for Shark Bites over a year ago now. I guess I'm not quite sure the exact when we went, and so we have the scissors, right?
Yes.
We have scissors. So I didn't know if that, we didn't know, so I wanted to bring it up.
No, what? But normally it's not the CIC that invites me, it's the business owners will put a notice out saying that they're doing a ribbon cutting, and, we go.
Well,
We did
Right.
Because the invitation that I got was, I think, from the business owner.
He might have done it, but it was at our direction.
But I think the main thing that we want to do is, from the CAC standpoint, we want to try to encourage a good relationship within the business and potentially use the business license portal to identify those new businesses that are coming into the area, so that we can be aware of that and be able to maybe reach out to them and try to engage them and say, hey, here's who we are, here's the city, this is what we'd like to do.
I can't help say that, neither the city council nor the CAC is a chamber of commerce.
Right.
I'm kind of a little hesitant to where we start drawing the line of promoting businesses as the city or as a council, a committee, no matter how much civic-minded they are, this, that, or the other thing, I'm not sure.
But there has to be a municipal purpose.
Are we walking down a road here that we really don't want to walk down?
That's why I'm suggesting when the business owner contacts me, I'll go. But to have a CAC.
Meet and greet wrapped up in a ribbon cutting, and the meet and greet is kind of different. It exists, you pick a spot for a meet and greet, that's the part that I'm just.
So we need to separate those two functions.
Meet and greet there is just as good as a meet and greet any place else, if that's where you want to do it. I just, like I said, I think a ribbon cutting, again, we're going off into a chamber of commerce sort of territory, and that's why there are chamber of commerces,
What's your opinion, Mr. Matthew?
I'm
not saying it's so. No, just ask his opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Colombo, or Councilman Colombo. First of all, the CAC is an advisory committee, so I'm not sure I understand a lot of that.
Okay.
Number two is, yes, it has to have a municipal purpose and a policy from the city. You want to spend tax dollars because it takes a certain amount of something to go out and welcome every single business that comes in and go through that trouble of seeking that out. If that's a policy you want to do and you feel that's a municipal purpose, they're going to need to have some long conversation about that here.
And that goes kind of hand in hand with, I had asked previously, they closed the road out in front of one of the businesses, the fire department did, for a toy drive and for I believe it was, there was a golf cart parade and some other things that had happened. And my issue was there was really no municipal purpose. That's why I brought it up. It was more of a business that was trying to promote their business. The reason I brought that up is I felt, number one, that there's really no policy that allows us to do that. And number two, for the fire department or police department to support a particular business or, I think we need to sort of stay away from that as much as we can. And I brought that up, I think, back when that happened. And, I think that our taxpayers' dollars need to be spent equally for everybody in the community and not for a particular business purpose. So I'm there with you. That having been said.
So basically, the meet and greet is February 8th. That's it. How's that?
Perfect.
Nothing wrong with that?
Yep. And I presume that you guys posted that on the CAC.
I think this all just transpired just prior to the meeting, so, yes.
Okay.
And it transpired prior to the meeting.
What? Talking to Lighthouse Subs and stuff to get the meet and greet, the date. Speak some.
I think it's where,
from.
Is that used to be the Magical Butter and they're in North
Yeah, Magical Butter, session,
Magical Butter's gone, so people don't get the munchies and go over there anymore, do they?
Well, maybe not, don't I?
Okay.
They may have left a few buckets in the back room.
This is the same meeting when the mayor said, I think a lot of the businesses at Cody River Landing have alcohol. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yes.
He's not sure.
You're not sure? Pretty sure. Okay, I'm pretty sure. Just pointing out the record.
Duly noted, thank you.
There you go.
Appreciate that, Mr. Matthews.
That's quite right.
Is that all the old
Welcome
business?
to the party.
I was just gonna say. Are you ready?
Good morning.
Any other old business? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
All right, there's another meeting coming.
Yep.